are sets of variables that are interdependent and together act to determine economic advance. One of them is the policy choices you make. Second is the strength of your institutions. You make the right policies and your institutions are weak, you become a repressive economy. With 2 steps forward because of good policy, 4 steps backwards because of weak institution has pushed things back. And if you want to read up on institutions and economic performance, you want to read Douglas North's 1990 book, Institutional Change and Economic Performance. Douglas North went on to win the Nobel Prize in Economics for that work. And so, institutions are critical to all economic advance. And nicely, Barack Obama reminds us of this. First visit to Africa, first speech on the continent of Africa as President of the United States, says what Africa needs is strong institutions, not strong. But the challenge of how we manage our country is that we keep relying on strong stuff and we don't build strong institutions. And with no apologies at all, quite well. It's a critical example. Third variable, human capital. People have to have knowledge and have to be well. I say to governments everywhere, you want progress, and they say to you, there are only 2 things you must do. Education. Get to right, people will make anything happen. Fourth variables, entrepreneurship. The Austrian economist, Mr. Schumpeter, creative destruction. Unless we creatively destroy yesterday, new wealth will not emerge that will improve the quality of our lives. Fifth variable, critical values, because values shape human progress. There is a Harvard professor, who's a great sage, went into politics, served in both the Nixon and Johnson administrations, and then became a senator, Democratic senator from New York. He was replaced in the U.S. Senate by Hillary Rodham Clinton. When he left the U.S. Senate, Newsweek magazine ran a cover story on him that was titled GLA. In our newsrooms, we call him the greatest living American. His name, Daniel Patrick Moynihan. And Daniel Patrick Moynihan is particularly remembered for the so-called truths. And he runs like this. So this is the central conservative truth. That is the way conservatives see reality. The central conservative truth is that it is not politics, but culture that is responsible for the progress of a society. The central liberal truth is that politics can change a culture and save it itself. The Singapore story is a classic example of the central liberal truth, where one man changed a culture. In changing a culture, took it in one generation from third world to the West. The title of this autobiography, memoirs, whatever. The man who in 1965 cried because he was hopeless for his country. They had no resources. The only source of revenues was the naval base. The British had made a decision to shut down every base east of Eden. They thought their only hope was being part of the Malaysia Federation. And the Malays have just ejected them from the Malaysia Federation. 30 years later, because he changed the values of the people who used to speak everywhere, the Chinese. You speak everywhere, you speak. If you're a really big man, in Singapore, in those days, you had a pot in the living room. So if you want to speak, and you spit inside. That's evidence that you're a big man. He banned pots. So when you talk, you get up to look pot, no pot. What do they say? Today, Singapore is one of the cleanest cities. Leadership. The sixth variable is leadership. And leadership matters not because leadership are strong men, can tar roads, or do all kinds of things. Leadership shapes culture. And culture shapes human beings. This is the leadership. Infrastructure is wonderful. All kinds of stuff. You don't get the values right. Don't get leaders that stand the tone of culture. Don't get human capital in place. If you don't get institutions right, don't make the right policy choices, you're all dressed up with nowhere to go. And so, if this is the macro context, at the micro level, we need enterprise, which is the wealth-creating institution. How do enterprises plot the future to their success? Enterprises plot the future to their success essentially by developing strategy, mapping their way to their place, having a compass that takes them there. And usually we talk about strategy at 4 levels, and I'm sure Nick will tell you more interesting things about such things. First question is, what business are we in? We're not clear. When Marcel was starting, he was general contractor, importer, exporter, damager, marketer. That was on your card, wasn't it? You can't be all things to all people and be successful in sustain. So you've got to answer the question, what business are we in? That's the first question. That's called corporate strategy. To answer that question, on next level is basic strategy. Basic strategy essentially deals with the question, now that I've decided this is the kind of business I am in, how do I build sustainable advantage over my rivals? So basic strategy. Then, at your various functions, functional strategies about alignment. How do you align the strategy at the functional level with your basic strategy? And then, fourthly, this comes back to what we said about values and human progress. It's your institutional strategy. 25 years, 30 years ago, if you read any book on strategy, you probably wouldn't have the level of institutional strategy. But it became widely accepted as a level of strategy following the work of Jim Collins and Jerry Borras, famously advertised in their book, Built to Last. Values are essentially the things that determine, sustain superior performance over others. And so you would have what level of strategy, which is what are the values of the company. So begin to move to a close. Once you have kind of charted your course, back to the basics. We want to create an entrepreneurial economy so that we can drive growth. In a country like this, in many places outside of Lagos, is government, government, government. So what we need is a new passion in people to be entrepreneurs. You're going to be an entrepreneur. What are the critical factors in venturing? Well, the entrepreneurial process, essentially in my work, in my experience, involves 3 sets of activities. One is opportunity conception. How do you identify opportunity? Check it out. Second is commercializing the venture. And the third is institutionalizing the venture. I think the man who has the job of educating us on all of this is here. And I'll just pass it over and Lady Alder will tell us how all of this will happen so I can stop being poor. Thank you.
Our host today is caught in a web of truth. It is in a peculiar situation in which telling the truth it exposes itself to the possibility of being accused of self-interest. It is not an enviable position to be. Thus, M&M School tell you the truth and be accused of promoting self-interest? Or does she tell a lie in order to deflect the accusation? Or should she keep mum, hoping to be accused of neither? The case for building a sustainable business-driven economy is as compelling as the crudity of the powerful logic behind it. That logic rests on the tripodal legs of common sense, stark realism, and inevitability. It is not an option for a country like Nigeria. It is the only way to go. Nigeria cannot literally afford the semblance of a command economy. Our vital statistics cannot entertain such a fanciful notion. And with that, I'd like to thank the organizers of this conference for inviting me to deliver this keynote address. I do hope to make a simple but powerful case for the establishment of a sustainable business-driven economy. It is a commonsensical approach to solving Nigeria's many challenges, and it's an objective to which the national and sub-national governments must commit to. The benefits are not limited to Nigeria or Akwa Ibom State. This is a roadmap for the economic development not just of Nigeria in general, but Akwa Ibom in particular, and whose consequential expanse covers the whole of West Africa and indeed Africa. Sometimes statistics can be numbing, and I shall be citing some statistics in this lecture. But I have tried to make statistics prosaic, so we do not fall into the trap of didactic prolixity. Let me begin with a dose of realism. Nigeria is suffering from four paradoxes. There is a paradox of economic growth versus development. There is a paradox of widening inequality. There is a paradox of very young and growing population, but lack of employment opportunities. 63% of the Nigerian population is below the age of 25. And there is a paradox of the myth of agriculture and all the assumptions undergirding it. In 1989, Nigeria's GDP per head was $280 per head. According to official statistics from the IMF, the World Bank, the CIA, and the United Nations, that figure rose roughly to $1,800 per annum in 2012. $1,800 translated to 290,000 naira then. Note that this was 2012 figure and does not take into account the rebasing of our economy. After rebasing, our economy, our GDP, rose from $285.56 billion to $509.9 billion. This, in effect, means that GDP per head rose. Now, according to National Bureau of Statistics and the CIA fact book, our GDP per head rose to $2,689. With the rebasing, Nigeria not only became the largest economy in Africa, but we also discovered that we have a more diversified economy than previously thought. In analyzing the economy of Nigeria, it is important to separate the earnings of government from the earnings of the people. If you mix up the two, you will arrive at wrong conclusions. The government of Nigeria earns a major chunk of its income from the proceeds of oil. Oil has been the dominant source of government revenue since the 1970s. Indeed, since 1973, crude oil has constituted 90% of forex earning and 70% of government revenue. Unfortunately, the oil sector employs only 5% of the Nigerian population. Thus, there is a disconnect between the government income and the well-being of the people. The people of Nigeria, on the other hand, earn their income from other sources. According to CIA fact file, the sectors driving the growth of the Nigerian economy are agriculture, telecommunications, and services. Now, while we may celebrate the quantum of growth, it will be politically and economically foolhardy not to pay attention to the quality and the structure of that growth. Our relative poverty index jumped 15% between 2009 and 2010, and another 2 points between 2010 and 2011. According to the 2010 figures from the National Bureau of Statistics, the national poverty incidence has 41% of Nigerians food poor. That means 41% of the people do not have access to nutritionally adequate diet. 60.9% are absolute poor. That means 60.9% are severely deprived of basic needs, including food, safe drinking water, sanitation facilities, health shelter, education, and information. 69% of Nigerians are relative poor. That means 69% of the people are poor relative to those around them. And 61.2% of Nigerians are dollar per day poor. That means 61.2% of the people have consumption or income less than $1 a day. In other words, according to every measure of poverty, things are not looking good for Nigeria. The reality is grim, and there is a widening gap between the rich and the poor. The more people we can move into the middle class, the better for the nation. Out of a total population of 176.6 million, the number of middle class as a percentage of the population is projected at just 25%. You need to understand something about evolution of Nigeria where we are now. We are not too far away from our aboriginal understanding of authority. When the king mandates the people to pay tribute. So there is a clash of civilization ideas. The traditional African concept of authority is subjection and tribute paying. But the ideas, the Western ideals, is an egalitarian system. So those two things are going to clash. You, unless you are an activist, you have to live with the reality of the political evolution of your operating environment. That means, for example, that if you are building a house, expect the tax authority to show up, the planning authority to show up. If it's on a waterway, expect federal inland waterway to show up. Isn't that so? Yes. And so then you have the testing, so many people that you never knew existed will just show up. The same thing with business. I mean, you try and imagine doing business in Lagos. You can't imagine how many official taxes and unofficial taxes. It's a reality. But the good thing about the entrepreneur is that what you buy is what you sell. In other words, all these taxations are costs. Do you understand? So you cannot factor your product. Depending on the kind of product you are selling. If you are selling a commodity, it's very hard. That is why you can't be an entrepreneur unless you add value. It is the value that gives you a brand. It is the value that gives you extra income. So, assuming that you produce your product at X amount of money, you are going to pay this tax and that tax and that tax and that tax. Just distribute the cost of your taxes on your products. You must pass it on to the buyer. That's why you're an entrepreneur. There's nothing you can do because the people that are coming after you are also in business. I'm being realistic with you. Now, as long as your business is not located in America, you have to live with the reality of the fact that you do business in Nigeria. But it's always better to be ahead of them. So you must look at your regulatory framework and look at the risk involved. Factor that into your pricing. Because you just don't develop a business strategy or a brand strategy. You must also develop a pricing strategy. That's important. Okay? So your pricing strategy will determine the strata of the market that you want to go for. If you want to go for the mass market, it means you make little profit, but you depend on quantum. Isn't that so? Now, if you don't have the capacity to produce in large numbers, you will lose money. Isn't that so? So part of your pricing strategy is the ability to produce in large numbers. If you can't produce in large numbers, you will be run out of that business. It also depends on your competition. There are times when a competitor, if it's a gorilla and it's a monopolist, if it comes after you with a gorilla punch, it will lower price below the cost of production so that it can drive you out of the market and then raise the price again after you left the market. I've seen that happen with some of our clients. In fact, 3 of our clients, they will tell you, don't buy our product this week, buy next week. Because they are going to crash the price so that people can run out of the market, ruin those businesses, and then again, regulatory framework. In America, you see there's something called antitrust. But in Nigeria, forget it. That is where we are. Live with the reality. Stop complaining. Take advantage of your problems.
Right here with me, the head of civil service, Imo State government. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
I want you to tell us your impression. You've been in there through the whole event. In one sentence, how would you describe this afternoon's event?
I would say awesome, because it is most apt at this time for us to start thinking on how to diversify the economy so that our graduates and those who are managing the economy will now know how best to move forward this economy, move forward the system so that it will benefit everybody. One of the burgeoning problems we have is graduate unemployment. Part of the reason is the absence of skill. That was amplified in the course of the lectures. There is need for finishing school programs like this. In Imo State, we have what we call ICAPS, Imo College of Advanced Professional Studies, put in place and packaged by His Excellency Owelana Orocha Sokorocha, the champion of free education. And the essence is for graduates to acquire skill and be able to be employable, and to even to employ themselves, and to give themselves job and employ others. So precisely, this is the best time for us to have such an economic summit, and all those that participated, if you were there, they were very happy. It was thought-provoking, reviewed a lot of things. People think that difficulties cannot be converted to opportunities. From what we've had, issues you think that should be thrown away, thrown overboard, can be converted into things that would propel one to do better. The story of the initiator of this program is exactly what everybody should read and follow. And there was one thing that was roundly emphasized, and that is that people should stop thinking that for you to succeed in business, you must be crooked. You shouldn't be crooked. You might succeed in one by being crooked, but that can be wiped out from the subsequent ones. So the best thing is transparency. But you must be determined. You must be propelled by determination. You must be determined. And then you must be in a position to take some risks, which is part of the commandments of good business.
Okay, finally now, what would you say you're taking back to Imo State? What would you say you're going to tell civil servants in Imo State? What would you tell the government of Imo State as a direct import from this summit?
Thank you very much. There is need to change the entire system. Change in the sense that people should stop thinking of government as a prime beneficiary. Let me be employed by government. Even when you are employed by government, start thinking on how to be an entrepreneur. Start thinking of it. Because after putting in 35 years or 60 years, which one comes first, definitely you move into the society. The pension may not be enough for you. And these days, when people retire and some of them are still very young, there is need for you to make use of the reserve energy you have and then putting your best in the economy. So it's like what I'm sending out to my state. I want to say that my governor, His Excellency Owelana Ayorocha Sokorocha, is already a champion of entrepreneurship. He's an entrepreneur himself, and he's been trying to inject us with the blood of entrepreneurship. And most of us are imbibing it. So what I've come here is another cap, another feather of my cap in that area. So you learn from him. We are going to strengthen his thinking in that direction and then leverage the state, both the civil servants and those and all others within the state system.
The head of service, Imo State Government, thank you very much for coming on.
Very much.
And we wish you a successful trip back to Imo State. We look forward to seeing you at the gala later this evening.
Definitely, I'll be there.
All right. Is this your first time on the Light and the Noise? Is this your first time in Akwa Ibom?
No, this is about the 4th time I'm visiting Akwa Ibom.
If you were in a Bible, you could dance that way. Oh, you can dance. Oh, okay. We have 3 minutes more so that we move to the next item, which is digestion. When I say you address, when I say happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Help me sing now. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you. For the last time, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Say the blush. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you. How old are you now? I am +1 today. I'm +1 today. I'm +1 today. Hip hip hip! Hip hip hip! Hip hip hip! Hooray! Thank you very much. Take pictures, take pictures.
Strength in which he has, and we pray that God should continue to keep him to see many more years. Thank you, sir.
So just touch the bone. Take pictures while he touched the bone. He that touched the bone become the bone. And we are all bulu. Thank you very much. So I know I'm at somebody think he wake up. Very heavy. Piano, go let's have go.
In some workplace, for myself, I always refer them as my colleagues. And in a special way, I'm very connected to them. And at this point in time, I feel their pulse, and I'm so confident with the caliber of staff I have. I always tell people everywhere I go that I have the best, workforce in the world. They believe in this vision. And it doesn't matter whether I'm there or not. They do it as their own thing. And this bull, represents. So when I saw this, a lot of things came to my mind. The first thing that came to my mind is that this bull is fighting. And it goes a long way to show that we still have so much wars to fight, and we'll keep winning. 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 Thank you very much. And God bless you all. Thank you. So heavy.